It begins with two guys in the wilderness of Bulgaria. One of them, Brett, tells his friend, Alex, about the nightmares he keeps having. Alex tells him to move on with his life. Brett says he can't, because that is the place he met his wife, Anna, who is unfortunately no longer alive. He even tried to leave, yet he could not. Then we see Brett's dream as he talks to Anna. He tells her about their memories together, and she says it was a simpler time when they were happy. Brett wonders why she said it like that, because they're supposed to be happy still. He also says he's been dreaming a lot about her lately. In a certain dream, she vanished after waving to him from a boat. Once Brett snaps his fingers, it starts getting darker fast. Anna cryptically tells him the night will fall, which causes him confusion. At that moment, this causes Brett to wake up from the nightmare. These are the dreadful types of nightmares he was talking about with Alex, who he calls soon after. Brett tells him he was right, he has to leave this place. It seems like the dreams won't stop as long as he lives there. On another day, Brett travels to the capital of the country, Sofia. From his taxi ride, we discover he's been living in the city of Varna for the past 3 years. Upon arriving at a building for a job, Brett is greeted by a man. His first words are that this building was the only one to survive a certain bombing that took place years ago. That is quite an unusual greeting, which we see surprises Brett. Yet, he is an unusual man. He mentions that fact before introducing himself as Martin. His colleague is Goran. When Brett is invited inside, he is impressed with the lavish interior of the place. Inside Martin's office, the job interview begins. It becomes revealed that Brett has been working for the LAPD for 15 years, though he retired 4 years ago. Soon the questions become uncomfortably personal for Brett. He tells them about it, and Martin assures him that the company is just particular about who they employ as security there. After that, Martin starts talking about the work they do. They store certain products in the basement of the building. Brett is curious about what the products are, but Martin doesn't tell him. Instead, the slightly eccentric man prefers to take him to the elevator. It is the only way to the basement, requiring an old-fashioned key to operate. While they occupy it, the lift takes some time to get there. We wonder how deep down the basement is. Then they arrive. Brett is taken to a room full of monitors. This is where he will have to start his shift every morning. Martin says it is the most important part. Following this, they go to a room with a gigantic door. It's so big that Brett says King Kong could be kept behind it. Goran says it is their storage hangar. Brett will never have to go there. Back in the monitor room, Martin tells Brett that if he sees even the slightest strange activity on the monitors, he has to tell them instantly. This job intrigues the man, so he takes it. He also gets to live there, inside the building of his workplace. Being taken to his room, Brett continues to love the design. Marin reminds him to lock the main entrance every night. In the morning, Brett wakes up from a nightmare again. After leaving his room, he sees some movement in his peripheral vision. Shortly after, it seems like it was only the housemaid. Afterward, he enters a coffee place. As he orders a coffee, the barista informally advises against him getting it. She tells him what he should get instead. We see rather quickly that she is a young lady who speaks her mind. She also says she saw him yesterday in the taxi. After Brett tells her what he's doing there, she introduces herself as Zara. As the days go by, we see Brett watching the monitors. Back in his room, he cleans a gun that he seems to have. While he's doing it, he hears someone laughing and running above him. He looks out the door, but sees no one. Later, he looks through a box of his belongings. It contains a precious photo of him with Anna. The word forever is written on its back. We wonder what their history was like. Why did she decide to end things? The next scene has him visiting the coffee place again. Zara wonders why an American is there in Bulgaria, working as a guard. He says it's a long story, though once he was a policeman, so security is somewhat close to that. When he tells her he retired in Varna, she thinks he's too young to be retired. She also says the building he's working in has a lot of history. To that, the man suggests she could come by. Upon returning to the building, Brett sees a man in the window looking at him. He disappears once Brett averts his gaze. He then sits in the monitor room, where he soon notices something move on one of the cameras. This causes him to call on the phone Martin left for him. He talks to a man who tells Brett to meet him at the front in a short time. An elderly blind man arrives in a taxi. He is Jacob. As Brett starts taking him to the basement, Jacob tells him he wasn't always blind. He also used to work at this building. Inside the monitor room, he wants Brett to tell him exactly what he saw. The man tries, but it's hard to describe because he hardly saw anything. At that point, he proposes that they go inside the room to check. Jacob firmly objects to such a proposition. That is when Brett becomes vocal, telling the mysterious blind man that he's tired of this monumental secrecy. He also mentions the oddity of Jacob coming there by taxi just for a blur on a camera. This makes Jacob say that Martin picked the right man for the job. Jacob discloses that he's a consultant. The job he used to do at this building is the job Brett is doing now. He worked there until his eyesight was taken from him. This makes us wonder how looking at cameras could have done that. The man leaves soon. After that, Brett calls Zara, wanting some information about the building he's working at. She mentions that murders took place there. A man tried to break into the building at night. The police were called, and they found 2 lifeless twin girls in his trunk. He was their father, but he said their mother was the one who ended them. The police couldn't find her. Some days later, to all that, Brett responds by wanting to meet Zara tomorrow. As he sits looking at the monitors, he hears sounds. They make him search the building. In the attic, Brett perceives two small girls that turn to look at him. However, it was just another dream. His digital clock shows him that it's 3 o'clock, yet his wristwatch says he's late for work. He walks into the monitor room to find himself in the uncomfortable situation of Martin sitting there. After Brett explains that the clock stopped working, Martin understands him. He is there to collect the data of the recording Brett observed, before leaving quickly. Later, Brett invites Zara to his place. She is impressed with it, much like he was. In his room, she looks at a picture of him with Anna, along with a picture of him in a police uniform. He reveals that he retired from it because he shot a kid. He was a gang member that took the life of his partner, so Brett took his life, or else he would have been next, bringing up Brett's deceased wife. And now this story of more life loss makes Zara want to leave, but Brett holds her back to start kissing her. He then comes back to the monitor room, where he hears noises nearby. It makes him come to the big door. Yet the only thing he finds there is more disturbing images, which force him to wake up. Upon leaving his bedroom, he finds Zara is still there. He tells her he had a bad dream. The next scene has him noticing a mark that one of the cameras recorded. This happening causes the whole crew to arrive. Brett tells them it looks like footprints. At this point, Martin says they will need to go into the hangar. Brett finally agrees with such a procedure. This is a man who wants to know what's going on to get to the bottom of things quickly, even if that means getting your hands dirty. So they come to the huge door that Martin opens. A few seconds after they've stepped inside, the door closes on them due to a timer. They soon locate the footprints, which Martin takes a picture of with his cell phone. That is it. They don't investigate further. The place is almost 100% dark, making whatever else is there invisible. But a picture is all that Martin takes before wanting to flee. Near the door, Goran tells him he's never seen that. Martin responds that he doesn't know what to do until Brett sees them. We don't know who he's talking about, though he knows something important that he can't seem to share so easily with Brett. Since they leave the building fast, they leave Brett saturated with curiosity regarding what's going on. At another time, Zara comes to visit again. She wants to know why Brett's not answering her calls. He doesn't know what she's talking about. Regardless of their mutual confusion, Zara suddenly starts kissing him. While they engage in intimacy, Brett gets an image of Zara being an injured Anna. It forces him to push her off, but he explains his action. Then Jacob comes to meet him. He says they are running out of time and believes something has started. When Brett asks him what it is, his question gets ignored. Jacob wants to be taken to the penthouse, so Brett follows him upstairs. Zara is also fortunate to have been there to experience the event unfolding. Jacob takes them to a room where a man lies in bed, on the brink of losing his life. He is Zahari, the building's architect. Brett says if that's him, he would have to be about 150 years old, so he doesn't believe it. At this point, Jacob reveals some bizarre information. He says this building occupies a space directly over one of 7 gates. Each gate is a doorway to the other side he calls the Night World, a land of ghosts. The other 6 gates are scattered throughout the world. Zahari happens to be the keeper of the final gateway. Zara asks who the others are, seemingly believing Jacob's words, unlike Brett. He has lived long enough not to believe in something like that without having seen it first. Yet Jacob doesn't know. What he does know is that every guardian answers to a man named Isaac Pritchard. He alone knows the location of every gateway. Afterward, Jacob says that Zahari is quickly passing away, which means the gateway beneath them is vulnerable. Someone, or something, is trying to enter their world. He wants to go to the basement right now, but Brett holds him back. Everything the man just heard doesn't make any sense. Jacob responds that if Brett doesn't do what he says, all that Brett knows will end. After all that, Brett starts packing his belongings to leave the building. While he does, Jacob goes to the basement. Once Brett realizes he is not near them, he goes with Zara to the monitor room, where Jacob resides. Now Brett sees that hundreds of footprints are displayed on the camera. He also sees that his friend, Alex, is outside the building's door. When Brett lets him inside, Alex gets upset, saying he's been trying to call him for 5 days. This confuses Brett, whose only response is to collect his gun before going back to the basement with Alex. There, he finds out from Zara that he wasn't answering her phone calls for about 5 days. This makes him ask Jacob how he could lose 5 days. In the night world, Jacob says, the concept of time has no place. Now they need to go back into the hangar to seal the breach before it becomes completely unstable. So all 4 of them enter it. In there, Brett asks Jacob about the incident involving the twin sisters. He wants to know why it happened. Jacob says the father believed the building had the power to bring them back to life. We then see Zahari's heart rate monitor has flatlined. At that moment, an ominous voice tells the group it sees them. Jacob realizes that Zahari has passed away. He wants to leave because the spirits are coming. Due to hearing a frightening sound, Brett goes back to search with his flashlight. Soon he finds a girl on her knees. Once she turns around, he cannot believe his eyes. It's Anna, so he gets her up to walk out with her. While the others walk, Alex turns around to see dozens of ghosts standing behind him. Who they are is unknown. After a few seconds, someone takes him away into the darkness. The poor man arrived not even 1 hour ago. It seems like he arrived just to meet his demise. Shortly after, Jacob drops the key that could get them out. It makes Zara search for it. Afterward, Jacob gets taken, as Alex did. Zara is also forced to deal with one of the ghosts, but she locates the knife Jacob dropped. It allows her to deal with the zombie, though we don't see how. Soon enough, she meets Anna and Beth at the door. After they make it to the other side, Zara exits with an injury due to her confrontation. Brett wants to tend to her, but Anna's presence pulls him toward her instead. He approaches his wife with caution because he still can't believe it's her. He asks how she could be real. She replies that it doesn't matter because she made her way back to him. Yet Zara wants Brett to understand that she is not Anna. Brett, however, loves her, so he doesn't want to believe it. Who would believe such words when the person they love is standing with them after being lost for a while? Brett's mind simply won't accept it. Anna wants him to open the door for her soul to become free. Before he does, the man wants to know why she left him. Anna says she did it for him so they could be together forever. That is a nonsensical answer. It doesn't explain why she did it. Next, she tells him that everything he's done since she left has been leading to this moment. Brett doesn't know what to say to that. And for good reason, it still doesn't make sense. It doesn't take long for Anna to use an inhuman voice to tell him to open the door. At that moment, Zara angrily tells her to stay away from him. After Anna pushes Brett away with inhuman strength, Zara comes to fight her. Of course, Anna gains the advantage in a short time. Brett stands behind her. He points his gun at the creature who took the form of his beloved, but he struggles to shoot. But if he doesn't, Zara could lose her life very soon. So he pulls it together and shoots her. After saving Zara, they manage to escape the building together. However, Zara's wound proves to be a mortal one. She falls to the ground, where she quickly passes away. This is tragic for Brett, because it seems he lost two ladies that he cares for. Perhaps he even loved them both. He then looks back at the building window to see another Zara screaming for help. Right after that, the Zara on the ground wakes up with red eyes and points his gun at him. She's about to do it, but gets shot by a man in a suit. Brett sees two of them standing there. Isaac Pritchard is how one of them identifies himself. He is the man Jacob told him about, the one who all the gate guardians answer to. The man behaves with solid authority, while also saying he has this situation under control. He wants Brett to go somewhere safe with his people. Looking back at the window, Brett sees Zara waving to him. Several of the spirits are also there, looking out into the world. The last person Brett sees is Anna, whose state of mind cannot be deciphered as she looks at him. She places her hand on the window to shatter it without much effort. We are led to believe that they will all escape.